the U.S. presidential election is looming ever closer, and as we rapidly approach November 3, 2020 shows no signs of getting any less crazy. As of making this video, we've seen rioting and civil unrest from coast to coast in the United States, from Philadelphia in the east to Los Angeles in the west, and, I'm really sorry to say, the outlook for the coming days only looks worse. In this video, I'm to explore one possible scenario for the aftermath of the election. Whilst there are endless possibilities for what could happen, I feel that what I'm about to describe could be some of the most likely, but unfortunate, outcomes. Regardless of how you feel about either candidate, whether it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden, one thing that can be said of both of them is that they are desperate to win. Trump wants his 4 more years, and to carry on the work he's been doing draining that swamp, whereas Sleepy Joe just wants to claim the throne before he expires, so he can then pass the crown on to his younger, further left running mate, Kamala Harris. With this in mind, the most likely outcome is that both candidates declare victory, and not only that but declare early on election night and not weeks or months down the line after all the mail-in ballots are counted. Declaring victory and doing it early will be crucial, and both campaigns will be champing at the bit to wave flags and pop the streamers as soon as they can. I think it's almost inevitable that this will happen. So November 4th, what could we have? Well, how about 2 opposing administrations, both the incumbent Trump one, and a new and apparently legitimate Biden administration in waiting. Both camps claiming that they are the rightful leaders of the United States. Now, at least in the short term, Trump will still be president in the days after the election, because even if Biden did somehow win, he's not sworn into office until January 20, 2021. Lawsuits and insane media screaming ensue, as the left and their shills try to use how they feel as justification for what they would like to be reality. The Supreme Court is now majority conservative justices, of course, and any decision is likely to go Trump's way, but Biden and his supporters surely know this already, so what is their plan? If we follow the logic from the Biden perspective, assuming that they aren't just grinning and hoping for the best, and think there's any chance that Trump will go quietly, then it goes something like this. Between November 4th and January 20th, beginning with shouting and screaming from the Biden campaign and the mainstream media, pressure is put on Donald Trump to capitulate. Of course, this won't happen, as the president is going to consider that he won the election fair and square, and for my part, I sincerely hope that he does. But the Biden camp must know this, and they also must know that any Supreme Court judgment is overwhelmingly likely to come out in favor of Trump, and that their claim to office will be denied. So with this in mind, surely they must have already decided on a plan of action that they will enact, that dispenses with the weeks of uncertainty and takes away the possibility of losing in court. If they have made a decision like this, then it's huge, and it's play for keeps stuff, as nothing short of a coup would be required. And that, my friends, isn't something you can deny happened, or claim was a mistake after it fails. So if they decide to make their play, you can bet it will be major. Of course, at this point they've tried smear campaigns about Russian collusion, they've tried to impeach President Trump and failed. In other words, they've tried all legal means of removing Orange Man Bat and they failed. This only leaves illegal means. I think it's unlikely that the military would take sides or be swayed by pseudo-patriotic calls from the Biden camp to physically arrest or kick Trump out. At least in the early weeks, that is. But I think it's far more likely that states being run by fervent, extreme left-wing Democrat administrations could perhaps offer initial resistance by activating their National Guards and refusing any orders that came from Trump's White House. By law, the National Guard is a force that is under the dual control of both the state and federal governments. As well as this, in 2006 Congress passed the 2007 National Defense Authorization Act, which gave the president the authority to mobilize National Guard units within the U.S. without the consent of state governors. This means that while regular Army commanders are unlikely to have difficult decisions to make, at least short term, that National Guard commanders will almost immediately be faced with a very difficult choice. That choice is obey your commander-in-chief, or obey your local commanders that are being directed by a state that is in open rebellion. Not only that, but each guardsman will also have to make that choice and take their actions accordingly. Undoubtedly, this will mean that even if guardsmen do answer their state's call and show up to be deployed illegally, that many of their colleagues won't. The crazy thing is that this conflict isn't being fought along geographic lines. It's too simple to say that the whole state of Oregon or Washington will simply rise up and resist. Many people in these states are patriots, and so will then start to form what will effectively be patriot insurgent movements within these rebel states, potentially made up in large part by the guardsmen that didn't show up for duty, assisted by militias and ordinary citizens. With this happening in the West in California, Oregon and Washington, similar things will be happening in the Northeast, with New York State, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire and Maine to name a few. Widespread civil unrest, rioting, looting, and general lawlessness seems inevitable both inside and adjacent to these zones, and significant loss of life is likely. With America embroiled in this de facto civil war, you'd think that we had enough to worry about. But 2020 is the gift that keeps on giving, my friends. And while the world superpower fights itself, others look on with glee, unbelieving of the opportunity that has now presented itself. In the East, China decides that now is the time to finally invade Taiwan, and launches an all-out attack against its small island neighbor. With orders coming from Washington being garbled and contradictory, US forces in the region are unable to mount a coherent defense of their ally, and Taiwan falls to the communist state. Further west, the conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia is still ongoing within the region of Nagorno-Karabakh, and while the conflict rages in North America, the Russians decide they will directly help their ally Armenia with direct military intervention. This, however, is still incredibly risky, as Turkey, which is a NATO member, is the ally of Azerbaijan, and direct conflict between Russia and Turkey would become increasingly likely. Russia is a member of the CTSO, or Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is an intergovernmental military alliance that was signed on May 15, 1992. 6 post-Soviet states belonging to the Commonwealth of Independent States, Russia, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, signed the Collective Security Treaty. This organization is a direct response to the Western NATO alliance. So you see, it might not seem like what happens in the States has any bearing on world events, but it's like pulling on a thread and then the whole sweater unraveling into a heap. A US civil war could easily lead to a third world war and all the associated problems and horrors that war comes with. In the end, it really might not even matter who wins the fight in North America, as those of us that are still around to celebrate the victory might well have lost far more than it was worth.